Greetings, listeners, and welcome to The Spiritual Experience, a show where we share stories of life, love, and redemption for all of humanity on Earth. So sit back and enjoy. Try to identify with the speakers and not compare. Don't forget to subscribe on all podcast platforms. I'm your host, Jay Lewis, and here we go. Hey, what's up, everybody? Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are, wherever you're listening. Spiritual Experience, we are back. All right, today we got a very special guest, somebody I've known a long time. He still can't stop himself from laughing. His hair is crazy. He's the man. I give you guys Liam. Liam, say hello.
Hello, my name is Liam.
All right, Liam. Now, here's the thing. Liam's been sober a long time, but he also comes from a large family. You know, so he's been around the block. His dad was a pillar of the community for young guys like me coming up. How many sisters and brothers you got?
3 of each.
Oh my God! Come on, are you kidding? So what was it like? You know, and you're the last, right?
I am the youngest. Yes, psychologically speaking, I am an only child.
Right. Okay.
No, it's true because there's 8 years separation. So that's one family, and I'm a second family. Yeah, and we can call them. I don't know if you have that capacity, but that would be so cool. We can call my siblings and ask them questions too. That'd be so much fun.
That'd be a lot of fun. But this is like we're gonna try and keep this PG rated. So was your dad sober when you were born, or was he? What was the story?
All right, I got my father sober. Okay,
you got him sober?
Absolutely, absolutely. You didn't know I was his sponsor. That's true. My siblings knew a father I didn't know. Okay, they knew a guy who would drink and pass out on the couch, and he was completely passive in that way. When I was about to be born, that's when he was hitting bottom. When my mother was pregnant with me, right? So I just told you there were 8 years between me and my next oldest sibling. My mother had all these young kids, and then she got pregnant again at the end of age of 40. And she's a stay-at-home mom, and her husband is dying before her eyes. And she doesn't know what she's going to do. She's going to have to raise 7 kids by herself, 6 that are little maniacs, 1 that's going to be a baby. And somehow she reached out to enough people or the right people at the right time, and somebody 12th step my father after a couple of fits and starts. And he came around. He came around November of 1966, and I was born in September.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So then, you know, as you're growing up, you know, you have these siblings, you have this family, but you have a different perception on life than them.
Totally.
Than them. Obviously, you have a different. I wouldn't say leadership structure. Like you're looking at your dad like, oh, here's this guy. And then, you know, you don't know the other guy. So while you're growing up, when did you find yourself maybe straying or just, let's just say, stumbling or gallivanting down into the street where you could start, using drugs and alcohol and that kind of stuff? And did you think that was inside of you?
I think I thought I was immune.
Did you know what sober was? Did you know that, oh, my dad is sober, or did you just not know?
No, I went to meetings from the time I could crawl. I was going to AA meetings.
Right, okay.
Yeah. I used to draw pictures during the meeting and sell them during the break. I was at meetings all the time. My consciousness of sobriety or the program or the steps was non-existent. It was just a place with some people. I had no real appreciation. But there was this arrogance in me that I can only, of course, see in retrospect, where I believed that because I saw behind the curtain, when you're drinking at the bus stop in the morning, I'm saying, you know what? You don't I know. You don't know, but I know. And, so much for that.
Right. So then what happens? Somebody sees you in the schoolyard. You're like, all right, let me start smoking cigarettes. Let me fit in. What's the story?
Well, I'd say the story probably is a combination of things, right? So getting high was always cool to me. My brothers hung out on the corner. There were always people in and out of the house. And getting high or seeing people get high was cool. I could see that. And just different groups of friends that I ended up with through the years. But I'd say that definitely from a very early age, I could see not so much the alcohol, because alcohol was like that thing that could get you into AA, and that was a different kind of thing. But weed in particular, I don't know. There was this girl that my father tutored, and she would slip me joints once in a while. And I tell you, I must have been like 9 years old or something.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and then like me and my friends would like have to go figure out what to do with this thing,
Right. And you said your brothers would be out hanging out. This sounds like just normal neighborhood stuff.
Oh, totally. No, my brothers were they were guys who would hang out in the corner, hang out in the schoolyard, have friends, and look, they grew up in the 60s and 70s. Of course they got high.
Yeah, in New York. New York. Mm-hmm. Right. So then you're going through school, you're making these friends, your dad is in AA. What's it like with your mom?
My mom was into her own thing. She was into spiritual, she might not use the word spiritual, but she wouldn't shy away from any word. She was open-minded to different creative, alternative things, I guess. She got involved with this group called the Prosperos, which was kind of like an encounter group. The kind of
like
thing.
What, like alien encounter? Like
no, encounter is a term of art referring to all kinds of groups that were popular in the late 60s and early 70s, where people would, I guess you would say, feel free to openly communicate with each other and
stay closer to the mic
and explore. I can't sit still. I know it's tough. I don't know
why.
I don't know why. I'm gonna play with everything. Okay, and I can curse, right? That's good.
Yeah, it's fine.
All right, good.
So your mom is like into the woo woo, and your dad's in AA.
Yeah, which is really not that far apart from one another. But I would say that they did their own thing. You know what I mean? Like she like horoscope. She loved that stuff. She was into all kinds of things like that. And of course, Al-Anon.
Right, and the thing is like, I guess what I'm trying to understand is that like all of this stuff is like non-traditional things. Right, like you guys are not buttoning up, going to church every Sunday, getting whacked with a ruler, like if you don't do your prayers or something, or is that happening?
However, that is the life my siblings knew. I could show you pictures of my family, and they're standing outside in front of the house, and it looks like Father's knows best, Right. It's like, there's the dad and the mom and the little kiddies all dressed up for Sunday school, and it really, and to me, I don't know any of those people. I never met any of those people. My older siblings went to Catholic school. I did not. I went to, like religious instruction or whatever they
You're like CCD? Is that what it's called?
No, because I think that would be on Sunday. I went on Wednesday afternoon. You had half a day on Wednesday if you went to Catholic school.
Wow.
Yeah. That was a big waste as far as I'm concerned. Yeah.
Right. So how do you think your siblings felt about you being, the kid born inside the bubble?
It evolved. I think Brian, my next oldest sibling, he probably had some significant resentment. He was the youngest. He was the baby. And then I came along. Yeah. But because there was such a gap, I think that they were, they saw me as their baby, like I had 3 moms and 3 dads and my real mom and dad, like everybody wanted to play with the baby and take good care of the baby. I think that's one of the reasons why I had such a hard time at school. School sucked. I hated school. And I think that was a combination of the fact that they had no idea how to teach anybody who didn't sit still and do the right thing. And I had no idea why all of a sudden I went from being the star of the show to being some kid in the back who kept getting in trouble.
Right. Now, speaking of the star of the show, I know you're a magician. Mm-hmm. When did that enter the fold?
Well, I definitely have different groups of friends over the years. And one of my earliest and best friends is this fellow, John, whose mother owned a bunch of antique stores. Well, she owned an antique store on Coney Island Avenue.
Right.
She then ended up owning a couple of other ones, but she would always do these things where she'd go to a house and buy all the furniture or buy the contents of the house or whatever it is. And so John was very interested in magic, so that got me into magic. He would take, whenever they came across magic tricks or magic books or anything like that, he would take them and we'd play with them and, and learn how to perform the tricks. And one thing led to another, and we've both been into magic for our whole lives.
Right, but now, what do you think was like awoken inside of you once you're like, oh my God, like I can do these tricks? Is it the learning how to do the tricks? Is it pulling the wool over people's eyes? Is it feeling a little sneaky? Is it like, what was it that drew you to that? It's like a very obscure thing. Like, it's like, okay, there are kids when I grew up that played with friggin' baseball cards. Mm-hmm. And then there were kids like, I grew up, my dad, he would have me box with my friends in the backyard, which is crazy. And then there was some kids, there was one kid that I knew, Dave, that he was into that stuff. But that's one out of every kid that I knew. One, he was into that. He would, as a young kid, maybe we were like 11 or something, or he would go to parties and be a clown. And he would juggle. And then he got into magic and all this other stuff. And I'm always like fascinated by, because it takes dedication to learn how to do all that shit.
Absolutely. I would say that, like everything else, it has meant different things at different times, and I've pursued it for different reasons at different times. I definitely remember seeing a talent show at school and watching people do their singing or their dancing or whatever else, and saying, wow, that trick that John and I did in the basement where the bottle turns into the glass and then they switch places and go back, like I could picture myself being up there doing that trick and everybody be amazed.
And everybody's going to love you.
And it's going to be amazing. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be cool. And then I was that guy up there on the stage doing that at that talent show or the dance show or whatever else it was.
And you did magic in the street also, no?
I did magic in the street. That was like almost like a hazing. I was in junior high and I was going out on the streets.
What year was this?
79?
Oh, that's the year I was born. 79, you were in the street. Yeah. Where were you? What was the story?
The story I tell myself is that I needed money to go see my sisters in Hawaii, which may or may not be 100% true, but I'm sure there's a grain in there. In any event, I went to Manhattan to do magic on the street to make money. That was the idea.
By yourself?
My dad came with me in the beginning. And we first went to the zoo because back then the zoo was just a part of the park. It was no like you have to enter the zoo or you have to pay or show a membership. It was just like the zoo is the zoo. And that was not a great place. Then somehow I found myself in Times Square and there was this line for the discount tickets. And that was the perfect place because there you had an audience, whether they wanted to be an audience or not.
Right.
They were standing in line. And there were actually two lines, one on each side of the block. So, and Father Duffy is the statue, that's the name of the square. It's Times Square on one side, it's Duffy Square on the other side.
Right.
And I would do my 3 or 4 tricks over here, and then I would go on to the other side and do the same 3 or 4 tricks. And by the time I got back, there'd be different people in line.
Wow.
So that was the routine, right? I started off thinking, I'm going to do this big act or whatever it is, and people are just going to put money in the basket. And I had to figure out, no, there's got to be a plan here. And that was kind of rewarding, but it was also freaking scary.
Yeah? In what way?
Wow, just being a little kid out there. And, in no time I was by myself. And it takes a lot more nerve to do tricks for strangers who did not ask you to do tricks for them than it does to do tricks with your friend in the basement,
Right.
Yeah. So that that took something.
Were
Later-
you smoking pot or drinking or anything at the time, or not
At the
yet?
time, I knew I had smoked pot because I remember I went to Mark Twain, and I remember being on the bus, and like somebody asked me something, and I said, "Oh yeah, I smoked weed," and they were like, "You smoked? Liam tried pot. Liam tried pot. Oh shit! Did you guys hear this?
Wow.
You know." So I know I had been exposed to it, but it really was not part of my life.
Right. In my mind, I'm asking because, like, maybe a young kid, I would have been, if I would have had to do that, maybe I would have had to take a few blasts to go over there because I'm not that brave.
I would say that when there were certainly memories. Like I remember being 16 and going to my girlfriend's party. I don't know why I was going because she broke up with me like the day before. So why the hell would I go to the party? I don't know. But I know I wanted to smoke weed before I went there. Like that was one of my earliest memories of actually using it to accomplish something or for a purpose.
Right.
You know?
For bravery.
Exactly. So just to finish up, the Magic in the Street, yeah, so that was great. And then I definitely also distinctly remember being surprised that you could go and do a party at somebody's house and they would give you money to do magic, you know? Like that felt different. Like making money in Times Square was good, and that was almost seemed like part of the I don't know, it didn't seem like such a big deal. But going to somebody's house, doing a magic show, and them handing you money was like a revelation, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as you move forward, where do the drugs and alcohol start to seep into your life?
Yeah. That's a good question. There was definitely a group of guys from the neighborhood that I had, so I grew up on the block with my buddies from the block. We were all little kids together. We all kind of grew up together. But then I kind of went away and did my own thing and really had different groups of friends. When I came back to being their friends again, drugs and alcohol were already like totally part of the scene. And that was it. If I was going to hang out with these guys, we were going to get high. And there were no guardrails, you know?
Right. Yeah, so then you're just a little bit at a time.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the two things that really, I loved weed because I loved being high. And then cocaine was really like, it wasn't even like, wow, this is a really good drug. I enjoy this. I want to do this drug more. It was more like, where have you been? This is my drug. This is me. Like, this is fucking perfect. I love this.
Yeah, how old are you when this is happening?
I would say in my late teens. Yeah,
Yeah,
early
late
20s.
teens. Wow, so,
Yeah.
All right, so you're ready to graduate high school, you're going to college, then you get introduced to all this stuff.
Yeah.
You went away to school, no? Or where'd you go to school?
Both. I went to, I graduated high school. I really only went to high school for a couple of years because junior high school back then included the 9th grade. And the high school I went to, you could take as many classes as you wanted. So I took a lot of classes and graduated early. So I really didn't spend all that much time in high school. I wasn't really that ambitious as far as where I was going to go to college. So when I graduated high school, I just went to Brooklyn College because I could get on my bike and go there.
Right.
Yeah, and then somewhere along the line, one thing led to another, and I took summer classes at Harvard, really liked that, and wanted to go back there. So I went back as a visiting student, and I spent a year there, and that was wonderful. That was a great thing. Yeah, and that was definitely a time when I was getting high and it was taken over. And I know that because there was one time when I was in Brooklyn College that it was one of these like forks in a road in life that you can go back and point to and say, I dodged a bullet. Or that's where my life changed. I didn't know it at the time. Maybe it took me years to look back on it and realize what had happened, but everything changed. Or didn't change in this particular case. I was interviewing for the scholars program at Brooklyn College. This like elite little group of kids that got special professors and special classes and who knows what. And the fact that I was even recommended to it was kind of amazing to me. and I was going to meet this history professor, and I bumped into this girl, and we started talking. And it was on the stairs, and I can picture it like it was yesterday. I know exactly where it is. We get in the car, I could take you there right now. And we started talking about drugs. And I was like amazed, because here's a girl talking to me about drugs and getting high. And I'm like, where the hell have you been all my life? This is amazing,
right.
you know? Yeah. And she says, do you smoke weed? It's kind of a funny thing to say the first time you're really having a conversation with somebody. I said, yeah, of course, I love weed. She said, do you do coke? I'm like, I love coke. Coke is my drug.
Doing coke is a weird opener.
Well,
do you smoke weed? Might be like a little footsie, but like... If you, by the way, do you do cocaine?
Yeah, but the reason she asked me that question is because she wanted to tell me there was this new thing, and it was called crack. And I thought that was a really stupid name for a drug, and I could not imagine that name would ever stick. Like
right.
that's a stupid name. Like that cannot really be called that. And if it is really called that, they're gonna call it something else, because that'll never last. But she was enthusiastic about it because it was less expensive and it got you more high. It's even better than powdered cocaine. It's a lot cheaper.
And she's a regular college student?
She was she was in my classes. She was in my classes. And I'm like, look, I'm going to see Professor so-and-so. And she said, yeah, you know, so we had this conversation. It's escalating. Do you do this? Do you do that? Oh, there's this new thing. And then she says, yeah, as a matter of fact, I'm going to get some right now. Do you want to come with me? And every bone in my body was like, do I want to come with you? I want to run away with you.
Right,
like
right.
You're it. But
that's it.
I blew this professor off last time, and I can't do it again. I got to meet with this guy. You know, she said, no problem. I'll see you again. I'll see you around class, or, you know, we'll do it next time or something like that. And that was the first time I'd ever heard of that drug. And I never saw that girl again.
Wow.
And under any other circumstance, I would have gone with her. And by the time I was exposed to that again, I had a little bit of a clue as to what that was.
Right. But at the time, like me being a little bit younger than you, like there's always this stereotype of like crack being like this dirty street drug. But I remember, you know, I had family members who were using it, and, you know, it took everything. It took everything from them. But I could never imagine somebody, when I'm thinking back at that time, I could never imagine somebody in college or somebody with their life together fucking around with that drug, because it was like the ultimate eraser.
Right, but nobody knew that.
It was brand new.
First time. It was the first time. And of course, at that point, I mean, okay, if you offered me heroin, I might not, because it's kind of scary. You stick it in your vein and, you know, people know it's addictive and all this. But at the time,
right.
Something that you just smoked, that doesn't sound like a big deal. I might even smoke heroin if I had the chance, you know, like that, because that doesn't sound quite so invasive.
But you're a cocaine user at this point, like habitually.
I wouldn't say habitually yet, but because it's expensive. It costs a lot of money, and I don't have a lot of money.
Right.
But I use it whenever I can. It's like it's the thing.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely having one bad experience with it after another.
Yeah. Consequences are coming?
Definitely consequences are coming. Oh, my God. Yeah. Terrible things are happening. Sometimes directly related, and sometimes not even directly related. Just bad things are happening. And more than that, I know something horrible is about to happen, right? That point in my life, I can clearly see that I was out of control.
Right. Now, did you think about those AA meetings?
Not in the least, no. Right? No, are you kidding? Me and my friend, my friend Elisa and I, we would drink and get high together. And I remember us reading the Big Book.
No way.
Yeah, totally. And like going through the steps and like.
Sounds like stupid.
Well, I'll tell you this much. We had no clue. I mean, the steps make some sense, the first few and maybe the fourth, but then after that, it's like, what are they even asking? And I really did believe those are the steps you had to take to get into AA.
Right.
Right. You can't get in until you do these things. And that level of ignorance is just startling for somebody who was actually present at like hundreds of AA meetings before.
Do you think your dad knew what was going on in your life?
He did, but my dad was a wise man, and did not. He knew better than to try to interfere. Did he like try to plant seeds or give you crumbs or something? He definitely planted seeds. He definitely left crumbs. He was definitely there to help. And he would make suggestions and he would say things, but he would never do anything to push or to alienate or anything like that. The best example I can give you of that is my niece, Patricia, when she was interviewing him. I don't know, she was in high school or something, and she was interviewing him for StoryCorps. We talk to older people about their life, or younger people, whatever, anybody with a story. And she says, you've been exposed to AA for a long time. What would you tell a young person like me about drugs and alcohol? And I suppose she was asking for like some insightful wisdom, like, let me tell you, my child.
Yeah.
When you see the drink, you must whatever. And what he said was, I have no idea. He said, when I was your age, nobody could tell me anything, but nobody needed to tell me anything. I saw the devastation that alcohol wreaked in my family's life, and I told myself, there's no way I'm going to have anything to do with that. Okay, I want better things. For all the quote unquote logic behind alcoholism or the use of alcohol or what it does, and yet he was powerless.
Right, but you did not see the devastation. You only saw the sunshine. So
well, yes and no, because I did go to meetings.
Right,
so
right.
I did see, right? So that, in other words,
but it's different than a drunk dad coming home, smacking your mom, falling asleep.
Where's
the pork chop?
Most definitely. But I will say that was a significant part of my growing up, seeing, look, at some point, any human becomes aware of the fact that adults are not omnipotent and they are fallible and have struggles.
Right.
In my life, that came in the form of listening to people qualify at AA meetings and hearing what they said, or somebody calling on their sponsor, my dad, and him not being home, and me answering the phone and talking to the person and them saying, is your dad home? And me saying no, and them saying, well, who's this? Oh, I'm his son. What's your name? Liam, is everything going to be all right? Just tell me, is everything going to be all right? Like that. And that for me was me acknowledging, like, wow, you know what? Not every adult has all the answers,
Right. Yeah. And so your life is like becoming a little bit more painful. And then, your dad is dropping these crumbs, but you got it all. You're holding it like the glue, like you're holding it, you're in college, you got a couple of these things going.
Yes and no. I was in college, but then I graduated and I didn't know if I wanted to go to graduate school for this or if I wanted to go to graduate school for that. So I started teaching, and
you were like a school teacher and a cocaine addict. Nice.
Yeah. Well, at the time, the Board of Ed needed substitute teachers, and all you needed was a degree, and I had a degree.
And you could do magic if you needed to.
Well, I could do a lot of things. I mean, really, most of what I taught was stuff that I remembered from when I was in the fourth grade,
Right.
Yeah. But so then I ended up in this school that really needed teachers. Mm-hmm. And they basically said after a few days, hey, listen, you seem like you know what you're doing.
And you were like, who, me?
Yeah. They were like, how would you like to, have like this be a job instead of just a day-to-day thing?
Is this your first job, like career kind of job?
Most definitely. Oh, absolutely. This was my first job. This was my first actual.
Here's all these 10-year-olds. Good luck.
Exactly. And you know what? We did all right. But I mean, we did about as all right as you could. We had a teacher who was bottoming out. And that was when I got sober. Right. That was when I was scraping bottom,
Yeah. What was that like for you? Were you like not sleeping?
It was torture. Yeah. Well, you know what it is? I mean, look, alcohol was a constant, but it was never the main event for me. Unless there was really no alternative. The main event for me was drugs, and as far as sleeping is concerned, that was an enormous symptom for me, because I love to sleep, and you can't get high and sleep. That's just not a thing. And for me personally, what my life had been reduced to was I was living in my parents' basement, and if I heard the milk being delivered to the school across the street, which would happen at about 4:30 in the morning, then I knew that I was a failure. Okay,
Right.
There was no denying. Like I could rationalize, I could deny, I could do all sorts of things, but if I'm awake and I hear that,
It's over.
that's it. That's it.
For me, it was when I say it all the time, because it's my reminder that I would be maybe 1 or 2 steps ahead of the pain for the day, and until I was outside and the sky's turning pink. When that sky's turning pink, it's like 4:30, 5 in the morning, and I'm still outside. That's when all of a sudden it all comes flooding in like you did it again.
Right.
As long as I could, and that was the bell, and you can't unring the bell. Like, I'm a loser, I did it again.
And you don't see it coming. You don't
No,
see it coming, right? You don't know the truck's going to be
You're
there.
praying this is the day that it's not going to come. But this has been your life for years.
Yeah.
For me.
Well, for me too, and I knew it, and that was really, if you want to know what the pit of my despair was, my absolute bottom, it was the acknowledgement or the acceptance or the whatever that I could not change this, that I was in this downward spiral. I'm not gonna.
And here we are.
I am again.
Yeah.
And at some point you have to acknowledge that this is it. This is it. You can't get out. I can't get out of this. I don't know how to get out of this. There's nothing I can do. This is who I am. This is my life.
So what happened next?
What happened next? Okay, so I was up all night one night, and I was going to school, and I had this down jacket with cargo pockets in the front, and I had a bullet, bullet that you can do coke with.
Tell people what a bullet is.
Now, this is what I do for a living, okay? As a lawyer, when somebody's on the stand and they use a term of art and nobody knows what that is, okay, tell the members of the jury, what exactly does it mean? What's a hand-to-hand?
Right.
Okay? All right. A bullet is okay, so you could keep your cocaine in a piece of foil or a jar or anything, but if you have a jar with a little cone on the top of it and a little valve, you can just snort right from the jar. And I mean, some of them are really sophisticated. They look like Vicks inhaler, and you could do it on a crowded elevator.
Right.
But no, mine was just a regular plain old thing, and I had it in my pocket, and it was like, Coke on the go kind of thing.
Right.
And I'd been up all night, and I was going to teach that day, and I was driving through Prospect Park on a snowy morning, not unlike this time of year, and it was this time of year. And I pulled over, and I asked for help, and I prayed. And I looked up and I walked out into the middle of the field, and I took the cocaine I had in the bag and I sprinkled it out, and I took the bullet and I put it in a snowball and I threw it, and I looked up in the sky and I said a prayer, and I begged for help.
With your heart.
Big time. I mean, look, you don't get to the middle of a snow-covered field throwing your valuable drugs away without meaning it. Okay?
Drugs were still expensive then, no?
Shit. $25 a quarter. I mean, that's a lot of money,
That's $100 a gram for those who want to do the math. That's a lot.
That's right. And that's where I'd gotten. That was the turning point for me. I had tried to stop many times. I hadn't been counting days, but I mean, in my journal, I made a list of the days that went by that I did use and didn't use, and like all these crazy things that we do, but that was the turning point for me. I went and I taught that day, and I didn't drink and I didn't drug. And the next day I didn't drink and I didn't drug. And some days went by. I don't know. 4 days.
How do you find yourself into a meeting?
4 days, 5 days, a week maybe. And then a funny thing happened. My dad and my sister, who did not live in Brooklyn anymore, but she was visiting, and her boyfriend, who was this guy I used to work for, who was a total rogue, and he actually did me a great service of telling me the kind of thing I did not want to do with my life. I loved school after working with this guy and actually having to whatever. So they're in the kitchen and I'm walking by or something like that. And they say, Liam, we need to talk to you. And I don't think they had the idea of an intervention in mind. I don't think that was in our common lexicon at the time, but
those are the worst things you can say to somebody who knows they have a problem. Just so we know that Jigga. By the way, it's all of a sudden like, what are you doing here? We're like, oh, we need to talk to you. You're like, fuck.
Oh, totally busted. And what they did was they started telling me I've got this problem, and I started saying, no, you don't understand. No, I did, and I meant it, and I really meant it, because what I meant was, where were you when I needed you last week? My problem's over. Okay, I had this moment out in the field with the God and the thing. So thanks, but no thanks. I'm good. If I need any help, I'll let you know.
Right.
That wasn't getting anywhere because they had my sister grew up going to meetings, but she was older than me, right? She's active now, sadly. The guy had been a crackhead. He was a friend of the family's forever since he was a little kid. He ended up being a crackhead. My father took him to meetings. He got sober, and then he started smoking weed and drinking again, and that's why he wasn't buying my denial either. I had, No,
you have people with experience.
Most definitely, right? So they said to me, no, we see that you have a problem, and we think you need help. And I think I knew that everybody knew, but I really never got busted, and I never really ratted myself out. At night I would say to myself, oh, tomorrow I'm going to reach out to my employee assistance person and see what they can do for me, no matter how humiliating it is. And I'd write myself notes. I'd make a recording of myself on a tape recorder, begging myself to get help.
Desperation.
Totally. And the next day I'd be like, I couldn't listen to that. I would take the page and rip it up. I would take the tape and destroy it. I would never be able to follow up. In any event, here they are. They're in my kitchen and they're cornering me and telling me to go to a meeting. And so because I had a teeny knowledge of AA, I said, fine. Me and Mark are going to go to a meeting on Monday night. You're confronting me about this on Friday?
I'll see you Monday.
No. Let's go now. You want it? Because Mark is at this point, part of the rap is, I need help too. So let's go together. Okay. So I'm like, fine, let's do it right now. I'm sure that somewhere in Brooklyn between Friday and Monday, there's an AA meeting. You want to do it? Let's go now.
It's so funny. That's like a very immense character trait of any drug addict or alcoholic. Like, you dare me? I double dare you. That's like, I'll show you. And in this instance, it works out.
It certainly does. In fact, it worked. I can say for me, it worked instantaneously.
Right.
I can tell you that, I didn't have like a Bill Wilson bright light, but I remember walking out onto the stoop and the sun was actually shining. Right. And I did feel about 100 pounds lighter. Right. Because my secret was out. And I'd actually asked for help. Or like I had not, maybe I got hit in the head with it, but whatever it was, I had accepted it. And that I knew felt entirely different. I'd never done anything like that before. I'd never been to an AA meeting where I was part of the AA meeting, for me.
Right. But the thing was, and this is what's funny listening to the story, is like, okay, the perception, we always talk on the show about the disease of perception, is that like, okay, you have asked for help, but you didn't ask for help from any of these people. Mm-hmm. You asked for help from the big guy upstairs with the snowball and the whole thing, right? And then he's like, all right, I got you. In 2 days, somebody's going to show up in your house and we're going to get you to help. And he's like, no. I asked for help out in the field. You're offering me help? No, I'm good. It has to be on my terms.
I've never seen it like that.
Meanwhile, my life is crumbling, right, and the milk crate bottles are banging together, and that's my alarm clock of insanity, right? But no, don't offer me. I'm good. I did it already. Look, Snowball, I did it. It's so crazy the way our mind works. And that's like, it's abnormal. When as you grow in recovery and you start to look at your life in the rearview mirror, you're like, wow, Like that is like a slice of insanity to think that I could go, you know, getting a couple of hours of punishing sleep every day here and there. And then you imagine now trying to do that and then going to teach 10-year-old kids.
Oh
like
my God.
The times table? Are you crazy? Like the vice that we put ourselves in is like torturous. And then you get that one relief, and the next thing you know, you're on the porch. The sun is shining. Like, holy shit, like you've been delivered.
Yeah. It felt that way. I had no idea what it was going to be like.
Even though you've been to AA so many times.
Right. I didn't know how it would feel. And boy, it felt weird. Let me tell you, it felt freaking weird.
Was there any cake?
Huh? I don't think there was cake. Not the first time I went. It was not an anniversary meeting. No.
That would have been fun.
But
so what happened? You show up at the meeting, then what?
I show up at the meeting and I feel like I feel a little bit of imposter syndrome because I don't feel like I'm an alcoholic. I'm not an alcoholic, right?
I'm a
drug addict,
yeah.
right. So that was my thing. And, you know, do I really fit my drinking into this thing that they're describing? Am I really powerless over alcohol?
Right.
You know, that was a challenge for me.
Sure.
And
understandably so.
Yeah. And at some point, there was a guy. And he talked to me in the back where the coffee pot was. And he said, hey, Liam, you're in the right place. Keep coming back.
No way.
And that's all he said. And, you know,
not even the philosophical.
Just that. And really from there, I guess part of my brain that just said, hey, listen, I'm going to let go of this whole question because this guy said I can come. Anybody has a problem, go talk to him. If I have a problem, remember what he said. That's it. I'm here. I'm in. I'm going to try this. Okay. And, you know, I mean, there were a million epiphanies along the way. There were other points, you know, I mean, I can definitely distinctly remember another instance where it's in Sheepshead Bay, and I was hanging out with the boys in the back. We were in the kitchen while the meeting was going on, and we were bullshitting. And then we came out, we sat down and listened to the speaker a little bit, and the speaker was one of these freaking AA nuts, right? He was like this guy who's like, you know, they're not suggestions. He's like, suggestions. He's like, if you don't take these suggestions, you are gonna drink, and if you drink, you are gonna die. Okay, like, and I remember sitting there and listening to this guy and thinking, wow. Maybe I should actually try doing this stuff a little bit more. You know, because I was at the part of my sobriety when the gift had started to come. I was kind of clearing up a little bit. Things weren't so bad. And I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm all
Dusting
right.
yourself off.
I can hang out with the boys in the back. We can bullshit, you know? Did
you have a sponsor around this time or no?
I had a couple of different sponsors. I had a sponsor. The first guy was on this list of interim sponsors, right? And that sounded pretty approachable, you know, like I'm not going to speak to somebody and actually ask them. Like, I don't know if I'm ready for that, but like go over to the secretary and say, hey, where's that list? That was the first sponsor I had. And he was this guy. All I remember was he had a V-neck terry cloth fucking thing and gold chains. And when I said, hey, listen, I want you to be my interim sponsor, your name was on the list. He looked at me like, I put my name on a list? Oh.
That's the right guy.
Yeah, but you know what? It was great because I broke the ice. You know, I did something. And then the next guy was a guy who I actually liked his message and really identified with. And that was actually a really good sponsor. He was, he sponsored with a gentle hand. And that's what I needed, and that's what I responded to. And he was a good sponsor. He was a good sponsor. Yeah. But he wasn't going to tell me that message that way. And I guess that night I needed to hear it that particular way. And I guess my point is that when the fella at the coffee pot said, you're in the right place, keep coming back, that was a little bit of an epiphany. I've had dozens of those. We could spend the next hour talking about all the times. I mean, look, you asking me to come here and do this podcast yesterday, and then there was a snowstorm, and then, you know, can I do it tomorrow? I'm supposed to do these other things, this or that. None of that. I'm here right now. I'm talking to you right now. That's an epiphany. That's me saying, hey, you know what? I've got 18 things to do. but I've got this one thing that everything else depends on, you know, and I keep forgetting it, and I keep being blessed with people who remind me of it.
So what I wanted to, I mean, you've been sober a long time now. How many years?
I think.
Don't be shy.
No, 1991. This is 22, so it'll be 31 years.
31 years. Okay.
Yeah, it'll be.
It'll be 31 years. So a couple of things I want to touch on. Number one, you know, we always joke about Bill Wilson because he knew your dad, you know, and like,
he knew me. I
and he knew you
I introduced
too.
him.
Okay.
Come on, give
All
me
right.
credit, man.
Yeah. All right. So there's that. So like you're close to the source, right? The source of all of our life, right? But you also have this perspective where you're seeing the humanity of just regular people who are in recovery, where you're just like, oh, you were saying adults are fallible, right? These people who have 10 years, 20 years, whatever, they're regular people where, like, you know, sometimes, you know, people go through life and they just think people are above being human. So, you know, you have that, well, you know, because when I'm in meetings and I hear people ball washing like Bill Wilson and like Dr. like, oh, but Bill and Bob, and I'm like, dude, I've been in Brooklyn, you know, 18 years I've been in Brooklyn, and I've met many people that knew Bill Wilson, and just like anybody else, he could be a cranky motherfucker because he's a human being, just like anybody else. Mm-hmm. This guy's not walking on water, whatever. We're all blessed that he, along with 100 other people, helped put a program together for the rest of us, because they didn't even have a big book when they got sober. They didn't have it. It didn't exist. So now that you've been sober a long time, and me semi-long, I can look back and say to myself, okay, in the beginning where the guy's like, if you don't do this, this, and this, you're going to drink, right? And that's like a wake-up call for you. And then you go through all of these different sponsors or whatever, and then the message gets delivered to you through the side window, through the chimney, not through, that guy just came straight through the front door and said, listen, to drink is to die. And I hear that a lot. And to be honest, I believe that, you know, but you know, now that we have all this nuance because of time and and how long we've been studying this stuff and whatever, do you ever find yourself forgetting the simplicity of the message when you see a new guy who's hanging out in the kitchen, who's not sitting up front or who's not like whatever, and be like, hey, listen, man, this shit's going to save your life. Like, that's like the simple message. And instead of, you can be like, hey, look at this pamphlet, blah, blah, blah. Because you and I can have that conversation where, like, because we have all this time with this kid who's counting days, he's like putzing around. I'm like, listen, if you don't turn your phone off, it could be a problem for you.
Yeah.
Do you see yourself like having like a conflict within yourself to remember what it was like to be a beginner and be like, okay, well, you should make a meeting every day that you can.
Yeah.
Instead of like, yeah, I go 3 days a week and we fuck around and blah, blah, blah.
I think that you, just like I let go and say that prayer in that field before I knew what I was even asking for, I have to let go that same way whenever I see a newcomer, because I've got a great message. I've got a great thing that I can share. Sharing makes me healthy and helps me survive, and maybe it may help somebody else. I've got to forgive myself before I even start. That it may come across, it may not. I may say it the way this person responds to. I may turn the person off, and I've got to let go and just carry the message to the best of my ability at that moment with that person in that place, whatever happens. Just like this conversation right now, you have no notes in front of you, right?
No.
You don't have I mean, maybe you have a structure in your head, but you don't have you don't have an agenda. Okay. I don't see a big clock on the wall here that we're hitting on a deadline, right? We're doing this in a way that is natural and spontaneous. I find that's the only way to approach a newcomer. with the message I have at that moment, and hope and pray that it gets through, and that I have the presence of mind to recognize the significance of the moment. That's it. That's it. Just to tie it back to what you said about Bill Wilson, right? It occurred to me that someday I could be the last person who met Bill Wilson, who's still in AA. I'm like, that
could be you now.
It could be.
That could be you now.
But here's the good part. But I also know that doesn't mean anything. It's completely insignificant, right? So when I think about AA and the fact that my father was 30 years after AA was founded, right? If you had 30 years, the only person who had 30 years when he got sober was Bill Wilson, right? Okay. When I think about, so I went to Bill Wilson's house where he grew up, and they have meetings there, and his grave is down the road, and I visited the grave. And one thing that's so clear to me, or became clear to me when I was there, or when I look back at these old pictures of my family going to stepping stones, is that that's wonderful, and it's cool to check it out. And if you are present there and you feel the Spirit move you, that's wonderful. But none of it means anything at all if we don't use it today, right? If you're not calling me up saying, hey, look, I have this spiritual experience podcast, I want you to come and talk to me about it. If you don't do that, then all that means nothing, right? If AA folded its tent a year ago and there were no more meetings, then no matter how much of a prophet that dude was, it would just be some dead history, okay? It means nothing unless somebody is trying to carry the message or work the program right this minute.
Thinking about that and understanding that we're just maybe depending on where you are mentally, limping out of a pandemic, how quick was the AA pivot when everything got shut down? Within a week, I was on Zoom meetings. Unbelievable.
Oh, it was crazy. It was
the
crazy.
Resourcefulness. Like if we were looking for your bullet in the snowball in the field, like that's how resourceful. Like I could not believe how quickly that happened.
It was amazing. It was amazing. And I marvel at the people who were the first ones to get that up and running and get the message out there. I thought it was never going to work. The announcement at the meeting was, I think Lucy is putting something together. Lucy's email is Lucy123 at whatever, try to email her or something like that. I'm like, well, I'll see you guys when this is over. Like, that'll never work. But you know what? Somehow I got a link from somebody, and next thing you knew, it was just part of the fabric of our days.
I just think that, we're so fortunate that when we are immersed in the program, or the people who are, we are just like solution driven. Like Lucy doesn't need the credit for setting up the Zoom account. She's just like, or they are just like, whomever they are who start whatever group you guys listen to. They don't need the credit. They're just like, listen, we're going to do this. We're going to do this, ba, 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 ba. Like, and then you think about how fortunate some other areas of society would be if they operated that way.
Oh my God.
Like how much, what's the saying? How much could you get done if you didn't need the credit?
Let me tell you, not getting the credit, they don't even come anymore. The people who act.
The meeting that I go to, that I'll always shout out, A Way Out group. It's in San Francisco. It is only a Zoom meeting. It was started on Zoom.
Is that right?
It's not even an in-person meeting. And the lady who started it, who's unbelievable, right? She donated her time and everything, put the whole thing together, and she doesn't even come anymore.
Yeah, that's amazing.
She doesn't even come anymore. And the meeting is every day, 7 days a week, noon. It's called The Way Out to Big Book meeting, and I love it. And it's like a little hokey because it's like California style and whatever, and they read a lot. But which is good because it allowed me to practice patience. But they also just read the first 164 pages, Dr. Bob's Nightmare, and that's it. Then we go back to blank page, Roman numeral 1, the whole thing.
Nice.
So what's good about that is that somehow we just press on. And it's not like somehow like some divine intervention. Like, no, people work together to take control of a situation, say, listen, this is what we need to do. And that's it. Because I know so many people who refuse to go on Zoom. Oh my God.
It's amazing, isn't it? Isn't it? Oh my goodness. Yeah. And it's, I see the prejudice. I never went to a phone-in meeting. Yeah, good luck. But when it's all there is, it was miraculous. It was kind of miraculous. And I'll tell you this much. For me personally, my home group is the Sons of Bill meeting.
Right.
And my home group is also the midday 2-for-1 group of Alcoholics Anonymous, which I know you're one of our biggest advocates, and I thank you for your support. In any event, midday is a group, one of these groups that you drop into, basically, right? Because it's in the middle of the day. So if you're working, you can't go with any consistency. So I would go to this meeting, and they'd always ask for service positions, and I would never take a service position because I don't know when I'm going to be able to come to this meeting. I might come twice this week, no times next week, and the week after that, it'll be 4 days a week. I'll be there. It's
right.
The nature of my work. But I always told myself, yeah, you know what? It's because of my schedule. That's why I can't do service here. Well, the pandemic comes along. Now we're on Zoom. Now everybody's sitting around all day. And lo and behold, I can do service. And the miracle is I do it.
Right.
which for me was a real shock. Because next thing I know, I've got a service position. We're drafting things. We're getting things organized. We're putting things into place. And we're making things happen. And it's like... it's that good AA feeling. Oh, man.
Right, the back to basics. Mm-hmm. Like the guy at the coffee thing, where he said, "Listen, just keep coming back. You belong here. Whatever." Like, I've gone small periods of time for me, which is like maybe 6 months or a year, without having a service commitment. I did the detox for 10 years that I would go there, and then once meetings started opening up again, I realized how grateful I was that we even had the Zoom. So once Greenwood opened up and they needed chair people, I said, listen, I'm going to chair the Thursday step meeting every Thursday. And I've been doing it since July. And sometimes there's 3 people and sometimes there's 11 people. One time it was only me, and that's okay. But it is almost like, coming back to home base, not realizing how good we had it for so many years that we've been sober, that you can kind of just be this social AA butterfly because now, we're out of the cocoon and the doomsday is not happening anymore. And you're just like, listen, I get up. It sounds like very, to go from, refusing or getting sober or going to the meeting and to spite your family and that guy, and then going to the meeting and then putzing around and somebody, whatever, to you get up every day that you can. And now meditation is part of your life. Exercise is part of your life. Healthy living, healthy, honest, true choices are just part of your life. It's part of who you are. Right? You don't have to think. 95% of the time, we don't have to think about what the right thing to do is. We may need some help to do the right thing. But I don't have any qualms about what the right and the wrong thing to do anymore. And when I came in, I was I had 90 days, less than 90 days, and I had some wisdom teeth extracted. And to me, the right thing to do was, they gave me the pills. I filled the script, and I went to my office, and I sold the pills. And I couldn't wait to tell my sponsor. He's like, what'd you do with the medication? I was like, oh, he's going to be so proud of me. I was like, dude, you don't understand. I was like, yeah, I sold them in my office right before the meeting, before I got here. They went quick, 8 minutes. Look, I made $400 or whatever. He was like, all right, I'm happy that you didn't take them, but it's not really something that, you should be doing. And I didn't even dawn on me, to not do that. Where now, bro, I can't even steal a candy bar. Because I'm like a little fairy.
Oh,
I can't even do that.
It's so fun, though, especially when you get away with it. Oh, isn't it fun? I love stealing. Stealing is the best.
I can't. I can't.
No, I don't either. But but I definitely remember the attraction. Put it that way.
Right. Totally. Well, anyway, Liam, look, it was great hanging out. Everybody, spiritual experience wherever you can find us. Apple, Spotify. I think Pandora has like a thing where, I don't know, if you Google, you'll find us. Jay Lewis. We're also on Instagram, The Spiritual Experience. Please follow us. We'll see you guys next week. All right? Peace.
All right.
We want to thank you all for joining us today. And please don't forget to like and subscribe on all podcast platforms. And find us on Facebook where you can become part of our family. We'll see you around.